Welcome back. This is week 2 in my project of becoming a React developer. I have created a very simple app and I use CodePen.io, which is a web application where you can create front-end applications. For this app we need to use the Babel, the transpiler that is needed to be able to render JSX into the browser. And we also have the React library and the React DOM library. So what we have in the HTML, we have a div with an ID of app. We have some CSS. And here I created the first component. It's the main component, it's called app. It's returning elements. Elements have to be put inside the div if you have several elements, or just use this thing called fraction. So in this app I will include another component. So I will write the other component here. And this is another component, and this time we just return one element, so we don't need the parentheses, we don't need the fraction here. And then to render this into the browser, this area down here, we need to use the React DOM library, and the React DOM has a method called render. And then we have to put this component inside the parent component. So this is step 1, talking about components. This is a component. This is a component. And let's continue. In the top area of this file, I have an array with objects. I call this array t-shirts, and you can see they have different properties here. My goal is to display some of these properties. I want to display the name, the color, and the price. So I have created a new component. This component is called display data area. I gave it that name. And I'm also using the props as a parameter for this function. Here I added these labels. They appear here right now, because I have also put this component inside the main component. So what I want to do now, I want to filter only the blue t-shirts, and I want to give them a uppercase name and also the price. So I will just copy some code to accomplish this. First of all, what's returned here in the component will be the following code. And now I also use some classes from the CSS, so we get blue colors, for example, and bold, but this is here, the B, and within the span. And here we have the JSX. I use props.name and props.color, props.price from these objects. But nothing is shown yet because we need to use the map function, the higher order function we talked about earlier. So let me copy some code again from my prepared code. I put it here. So we have a UL. We have everything inside a UL, unordered list. And here's a comment. you write comments in JSX with brackets, and then like you do in CSS with a / and a asterisk. So here is the array that I showed you from the top of this file. The array with 100 objects. And what I'm doing here now, I'm using the filter higher order function, and I use the color property equals to blue, so we just get the blue t-shirts of all those 100 objects. We get these 8 that is shown here. The next thing I do method chaining, it's called. I continue with the map higher order function, because out from this filter we get a new array, and from that array we continue mapping all those objects that are blue. We are mapping, and here we put the component and give it the attribute or the prop of x.name. So forget about this for a while. X.name, and later here we have another prop, color, and x.color. It's what is looped through with the map function. We access it from the x here. And the last one is the price. So we have name, color, and price. But what I did with the name here is this is JavaScript skills that has nothing to do with the React actually. I choose the first character in each name, each string, and I make that one uppercase. This is a JavaScript method, a JavaScript array method, to uppercase. And then I concatenate the rest of the name, and then I use the slice method. The slice starts from the second character in the string. Like in this case, it starts from here. So when we concatenate, we get a name with a capitalized first letter. So because I have used props in this function, in this component, I can, from the JSX, access the name property of these objects that I'm looping through here with different methods just to display it properly. So that's props. And next step, we will take a look at state. And I will copy another component. So in order to work with state, we have to import this useState method from the React library, and I put it here in a variable called useState. State is the built-in state object for each component, and when the state object is changed, the component is rendered again. And this is one of the big advantages of React, because we only have to render what has been changed instead of rendering all the code. So I have created a new component here, and I call it order area, this one, and I added it in the main component here, order area. So it displays down here. It's not so much here, but that's a lot of code. So we have to take a look at that. First of all, we use the useState method here. And this method returns 2 items in an array. So we cannot put it in a variable. We have to put it in a new array with 2 variables. This is called destructuring. This is JavaScript knowledge. So I have named these variables counter and set count. I could have named them anything, but this is what I choose. So the counter will display its change here. Now we have 0. We have set it to 0 here. If I change it, it will change down there. But we will have the default value of 0. So in this component, I have two functions, increase count and decrease count. The increase count method will get a higher value each time you click the plus sign. So we assign it this variable as a parameter and we add 1 to it. And the decrease count is doing the opposite. We subtract 1 from the previous. And here we also have an if statement because we don't want to decrease below 0. It's impossible now because we have made this if statement. If previous is larger than 0, return previous minus 1, else return 0. So these both functions are triggered in these on-click events here. And this line, as you see, we have the counter from here, the 0 here, and we have these events in the button elements, very conveniently done in React. We use onClick with the capital C, and then we have the JSX where we put the function increase count and decrease count respectively for each of these buttons. So when I click here, it changes immediately. It's very responsive, it's very fast, and when we use state like this the React way, we get very fast applications. So I think I have covered the very basics. I did it very shortly in this video. You have to practice yourself and you have to research other tutorials or books or articles. I have immersed myself in React lately, so now I can write very simple React code intuitively, actually. So I can see I make a progress, but I'm still also working on the JavaScript fundamentals and a little bit more advanced things. Thank you for watching and see you next week. Bye bye.